Fine, fine. So it's the 16th lecture, and again the second part of the focus that is going to cover the file system organization, directory structures, and the file handling process, file sharing process. So in this particular focus, we are going to discuss some of the example related discussion of file system organization, directory, and the sharing. And specifically, we are going to discuss the examples in Linux because again, it's a free source OS and quite popular among the research community, especially because the researchers do like the free options and they have the kind of access support that is required for the in-depth research and analysis in any kind of OS. So when we discuss the file system organization, then Linux file system offers some kind of means I will not say some kind of unique features because multiple OSs share means some or all of these features. But in Linux specifically, we use some of these traditions or kind of notations. Like for hidden files, we use a particular dot, but it's not a kind of operator. It's just a kind of notation. Okay, so we can also say the kind of operator because it automatically hides your file. So if you simply put a dot in front of any file name, it will become a hidden file. Additionally, the another feature is that like in Windows, we use the backward slash. In Linux, we use means the Unix-based systems, we use the forward slash to separate our directory structures. Means whenever we want to notate or show any particular file path, then we use a combination of multiple directories and the forward slashes. Then the in the last lecture we discussed that everything in Linux is a kind of file. So might be the directories or the drives or everything. So that is stored in the form of file only. So Linux means it doesn't use any sort of specific letters to denote the drives. Like in Windows, we usually see that C, D, E, F, or some letter is assigned to a particular drive, and then that particular drive is known with that particular character name only. And like in Windows, means case sensitivity is also gets applied in Linux, and specifically if you define means it is very common point. If you define that any in capital letter or small letter, that particular file is supposed to be in two different formats. Means one is another file, means like 1, 2, 3. Then 1, 2, 3, that is numeric, but totally numeric form. Some of the OSs do accept that kind of names, some of the OSs don't. And if you define ONE1, all in a small letter, that is means a separate file, and ONE1 in capital letters, that is a separate file. So case sensitivity do get applied. And with respect to file extensions, some of the OSs don't support the concept of file extensions. So there you explicitly have to go into the file and see what sort of data is present inside that particular file. And in Linux also, that is not necessary. Fine. So we discussed that what are the some common notations kind of things in Linux. Now, what are the different types of file systems? So, because after having the basic notion of the notations, we are supposed to explore that what are the different types of Linux file systems that are present. So in last lecture, we discussed the concept of ext, that is extension. Means I told them in short, we call it extension, but in actual it is extended file system. And these are different versions. So ext, that was the original one. Then the improved version of ext, that is ext2, then ext3 and so on. But ext4 is a kind of standard, and that is used in most of the Linux-based systems. And now, like NTFS in Windows, ext4 has become a kind of a standard in Linux-based systems. So primarily, it was developed for the Minix OS, and Minix was the kind of basic operating system that was developed just for the practical hands-on purposes. It was kind of very minimal OS, means containing different functionalities of OS, but in their very minimal form. So just for the practical understanding and the hands-on research purposes, Minix was developed. Now, ext4 is a compatible option for faster drives. And fast means which are supposed to deliver very high speed input-output. So that's why we do know that solid-state drives, means SSD drives, are quite popularly known for their speeds. And now in today's laptop, the hard disk standard is the SSD standard. So we do know that with respect to SATA, SSD cost is higher, and that high cost factor is obviously because of its fast input output speed. So it's the kind of a default OS, default file system in Linux distribution, this ext4, and that is suitable for SSD drives also. So that's why free OS and a well-known compatible version in form of ext4 and the kind of faster drive, that is SSD. So it's become a very good combination. So that's why people normally go for this sort of option, having a laptop at least a half of the hard drive or the one fourth of your hard drive should be SSD, so that at least your OS should reside in that particular partition. Like most of the people do like that only if you don't have that much money. So that's why you should go for kind of option where you are supposed to have at least one fourth of your hard disk in the form of SSD. Then you can have your C mounted on that particular disk partition only, and then you can have a particular kind of good file system that is supposed to deliver the optimal kind of input output and the memory and the file read write access permissions, and it becomes a totally fine, means a great combination. So depending on a particular OS, you are supposed to choose a compatible, that is a good compatible file system option. And in terms of Linux or Unix based system, we do have in the form of ext4. Now the another one is the JFS, that is General File System. It was developed by IBM, and IBM, as it is well known as a research company, so it was also means JFS was also developed as a kind of very compact and as well as a very means compatible kind of option like ext4. So it was handy OS, but when we say handy means it was supposed to deliver the kind of performance that is not hampering the power performance of the system. So that's why if your CPU power is limited, kind of, then this sort of file system is quite suitable for you. But over the period of time, the multimedia applications and all those things means pressurized the users because their needs are supposed to grow in that particular fashion. So if your demands grew over the period of time, then you are supposed to have a power efficient CPU because it is supposed to more multimedia applications, more power dissipation. So in that aspect, your system should be capable enough to handle that particular power consumption, means your power efficiency should be in control. So that's why efficient file system is also required, that is supposed to deliver the optimal kind of performance with respect to the power factor of your system. Okay. Now the next one is the RazorFS, and it was the alternative to extension 3. Now, as we have already discussed about the extension 4, means extended file system 4. Now, why we are discussing ext4? Because RazorFS was kind of alternative to ext3, but as we do know that ext4 is in place, so there were definitely some of the drawbacks in RazorFS. So as you can see here, it is written over here that SUSE, it's a kind of a distro of Linux. So in SUSE distro of Linux, ext3 compatible RazorFS was used. But later, due to its performance drawbacks, SUSE returned back to ext3. And after some period of time, ext4 came as an improved version of ext3. So definitely it was adopted as a default file system. So dynamic support was available for the file extension in that particular file system, but ultimately the performance was not that good. So that's why again we came back onto ext4. So ext4 till now means up to this discussion, means having this sort of discussion, we came to a common conclusion that ext4 is a kind of very good compatible file system option that is available in Linux or Unix based option, Unix based OSs. Now another one is the XFS. It is considered similar to the JFS as a high speed file system, and when we say high speed, then obviously your read write speed and the kind of because when we say storage is a kind of writing only. Because when we are storing something into memory, then what we are doing, we are specifically writing something into a memory, means a frame. So that's why your read write speed is more. So either read write speed should be higher or your processing might be parallel. So XFS exploits this parallel component, the power of parallelism. is exploited in XFS, and that's why it became suitable for high storage servers. Because if a system is means if a system or a kind of user is capable enough to handle multiple tasks at a time, means parallelism is possible, then obviously for high storage kind of big data systems, that sort of file system is quite suitable. So 300 or 400 plus terabytes kind of server. So XFS is a good option. Now, next one is the BTRFS. It stands for the B-tree file system, and it was used for delivering multiple means kind of attributions in specific OS with respect to your file system, like effective storage configuration, and that is extensive in nature also. Additionally, the administration means it should be kind of fun, means it should not be kind of the boring and the hectic tedious task. So that's why the fun administration means easy administration and quite efficient repair system and good fault tolerance, means your system should not surrender just in front of any of the fault that is occurring on regular basis or suddenly inside your system. Okay, now the last one is the swap. So I think most of you who have used Linux or Linux based system, they might have definitely known about this particular file system. Swap is a kind of area that you define in your memory when you install Linux or Unix in your system. Okay, so it is a as the name suggests itself, means it is used for swapping purposes only. And swapping means what? Means taking program in or out from memory. Okay, so in this way, your memory paging activity is taken into consideration effectively in swap FS. So that's why it is specifically designed for memory paging activity in Linux. Okay, and it actively works when you have the kind of operation of system hibernation. So when we say system hibernation, so in hibernation system, your system goes. Anybody would like to share comment? What is hibernation? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, Prem. What is hibernation?
Professor, it could be like a type in which you can put your system. So, like instead of putting it in sleep, you can put it in hibernate.
Okay, so is there no difference in sleep and hibernation?
No, Professor. In sleep, your processes are still on, but in hibernate, your processes are turned off. And the moment you turn your laptop on again, it resumes the process.
Okay, so how does it resume?
Professor, there might be a page file or something that might exist for that.
Yes, means it's a kind of that your current system state is saved into disk, and as soon as you just again make some sort of activity on your system, then again it comes back to the original state, mean the last state. So that's why that state is stored in your system in its compact form. So that's why here you can see the star point. A system that never goes in hibernate state is required to have a swap space equal to its RAM size, because you don't need to store your content. Okay, if your swap space is equal to RAM size, then you don't need to make a compact view of your current system state, and then you are not supposed to store that particular compact view in memory. Okay, if your RAM size equal to your swap space, or means your swap space is just equal to your RAM size, then you simply can have the same sort of means the same state. Just a replica or the copy of the real RAM state could have been saved in swap space. So that's why this point is written over here. Okay. Normally, what is done in hibernation? A compact or the little means kind of, as you told, the paged kind of activity is performed, and that particular paged table kind of view is stored. Means a particular kind of compact view is created of a current RAM state, and in RAM, obviously, if your RAM is running full of its capacity, then it might be kind of complex to maintain, because your RAM might be large in case of server or the high capacity or workstations. So when your system, what you should say means when your system type is different, then the hibernation and all these processes are also get affected, because then you need to define the relative swap space and the relative paging or the pointer activities accordingly. If your pointer means this memory management and the swapping and all those things means a good file system and memory management is not available from your OS side, then obviously your system performance is going to die. So if you have a good power packed system, but if you don't have a good memory management or file management schemes, okay, means if you don't have a good OS backup for the system performance activities, then obviously your hardware power is of no use. Again and again, means after every 2 3 lecture we come on to this common conclusion that if your hardware is good enough but your software side is poor, okay, then your hardware is of no use. So commonly known as the trade-off of system components. Moving forward, now we are going to discuss that what are the different types of directories. Those are available inside a Linux system. So it is commonly known as the directory structure. So the question is that what is a common directory structure? So it is nothing but the files organization in Linux. Because when we do say that directory is what in Linux, a directory is also a file. Okay, so if directory is also a file, then we are supposed to store that particular structure also in a particular form. But we are not bothered about that particular form. We are bothered about the actual files that is stored inside that particular structure, because ultimately your data is not in folder, your data is in files only. Okay, but your files are means the number of files is so large that you can't have a means all kind of files together in a single spot. So that's why you are supposed to segregate and make some sort of segregation classification, means kind of arrangement where you perform some sort of classification so that you could efficiently arrange all sort of file, and relatively over the period of time whenever it's required you could fetch all the things back in their original form, means without kind of losing any file. So here why, so question is means we have done this, okay, we have done the segregation, we have performed a classification of files, but why? So obviously for efficient file management, it is ultimately going to reduce your read or write means or the searching time, because read or write operation is also not possible without searching operation. So either you have to create one file, but if you have created one file, you have written the kind of content inside it, then you are supposed to write it. But if you don't find the suitable space inside the memory, then again it is going to take time. Okay, means delay. Delay means more response time. So in this way, you are supposed to say, mean in a single line, if you want to summarize, then we can say that more searching time is supposed to be there if you don't have a efficient file management system. So that's why directory structure help you to maintain an efficient file management system inside your system. Okay, now when so have you have means in a general case multitude of files are present inside our system. Okay, and if you have the multiple kind of users available, those have the accesses to a particular system, then this situation is going to get worse. Okay, so that's why we are supposed to consider a kind of optimal file management system, so that with respect to each and means each type or each user, whatever you say, means if you want to define group, then it's fine. Okay, if you don't want to define groups, then it's also fine. But depending on a particular system administrator, means your file system is supposed to allocate the kind of space or the location where your files are supposed to get stored. Okay, now how to manage? So based on the common characteristics, because as we just now discussed that if the system administrator has formed particular kinds of group, okay, then based on that group characteristics, that this is the in your college database also, means this is the faculty group, this is the student group, this is the staff group. So in this way, based on the common characteristics, you are supposed to segregate the files of different data that is present in a common database. So now in Linux, we have a root directory, as you can see in this figure. And as you can also see that here, these are the multiple subdirectories. Okay, it's the common, means you can say the very first directory inside your system. Okay, that is known as root directory. And this concept of root came from the tree data structure. Like in tree, we do have a single root node. Okay, unless you have the distributed tree structure. So here it's a common tree kind of form, and here these are different directory structures, and in each type of different directory, you can see that there are common, means common files having the common attributes. So those are stored. Like in bin, means essential common command binaries, and now these binaries means the kind of executables, and those might be of particular use. Okay, then we'll discuss in detail all these things further. Then in boot we have the bootloader related. In device we have the devices, then etc. means some sort of multiple system configuration files that are required time to time. Then with respect to home, if you have a single user, okay, inside home there is a single user directory, but if you have multiple users, then inside home, then again you have multiple user. So here these are the library, shared libraries, then media, then mounting with respect to file system, then some optional means if you have some add-on packages inside your system with respect to all those things, there are the content or data present here. Then it is the as binaries means system binaries. Then it is related to the services from the systems, and now with respect to different applications, multiple services are required. So that's why it is the service system. Then this is the temporary, because over the period of time, when we discuss the exchange of data with respect to any system over the particular network, then every system is supposed to exchange some data, and that data is not permanent in nature. So that's why you are supposed to create some temporary files to hold your temporary data. Okay. Finally, it is the user file to have the user utilities and the application. And lastly, it is the process information. In addition to this, there are some other subdirectories that also we will discuss in detail here. So starting with the very first, that is root directory. So root is a kind of parent of all. Okay, might be direct or indirect, but it is parent of all. So here you can see means in your system, if you click on your computer here, it is a computer tab. So as you can see here, there is no means with respect to computer or any other volume or something, there is no character symbol. Like we discussed in the properties of Linux, means there is no character assignment for a particular drive. Okay. Now, if you click on your computer, then here you'll see that it is showing here as a /. Just at the top of your screen, you can see it is a /, means it is the root directory. Okay, now here your all kinds of files are present. Okay, binary, boot, related, CD-ROM, devices, etc., home, library, lib64. Okay, media, mounting, optional, processes, root, run, etc. Okay, this run is optional and it is not present in all of the OSs. Okay, then SBIN, snap, servers. So services, systems, temporary user, variables. Okay, so here and these are some of the system related files I will discuss again. So here, with respect to root source, it is, as we discussed, it is the parent for all, and only the root user has the write privilege. Okay, you can have read from here, like we discussed the concept of access control in last lecture, where we are supposed to have the read, write, and execute permission. So only the root user has the write permission in this particular directory. And this is just to have a kind of safeguard, because if you provide the root permission to everyone, then obviously they are going to change or make some serious mistakes inside your system organization. Okay. Now, what is the difference between /root and simple /? So the former means this one, means the /root, /root is the root user's home directory. As we discussed that home is the parent directory for different sorts of user. Inside home, we can have multiple folders with respect to different users. Okay. If you have 4 users inside home, you are supposed to have 4 different folders, because those are supposed to point the different homes for each of the users. Okay. So here, this /root means it is the, because your root user has the right permission to this particular directory. So that's why it is the home directory for your root user. But this / is just pointing to the top mounting position, means from here your file system is supposed to get mounted. So ultimately it is also part of your file system only. Okay, so it is the home directory for root user, and it is your top mounting point of your file system. Moving forward, here we have the another directory that is a very well-known directory and commonly used for multiple purposes, that is bin. So it contains the user binaries. Okay, so when we say binaries, means those are kind of, okay, anybody could please detail me what is the meaning of binaries? What are the binary files? Anyone?
Professor, I have a slight idea, but it might be wrong.
No issue. Please continue.
My idea, I'm pretty sure, is wrong, because like back in the day when I used to pirate games, you usually get the pirated game in a .bin file.
Yeah.
And then you had to mount it as an ISO and then run it. So I'm pretty sure that's wrong, because looking at the binaries given in the presentation, it feels wrong.
No. You please put your opinion. What do you understand means? What is a binary file? You are supposed to say means it's an ISO file.
So it's not an ISO file, but you used to mount it like an ISO file using a virtual ROM, virtual CD-ROM.
No, whatever you are saying, that is not wrong. Means that is right only because binary is not a single kind of file. When we say binary file, that is a different thing. And when we say binaries, that is a different thing. Binary file means it's a kind of file that is supposed to have strictly only 0 1 data. That is a binary file. Okay. But when we say binaries means it's a kind of system file that is readable by your system. So if there is some ISO file or there is some DLL file, so those are different kind of binaries. Okay. So these are user binaries means these are the kind of binary executables. Binary executables, normally your system understands 0 1. Okay. But there might be some form of data which is understandable by your machine. So that is a kind of executable. So if you, in general terms, if you want to define binaries, then it's a kind of executable files. Okay. So here, if you have the different kind of executable files, then with respect to different, you are supposed to have different files. Like if you want to install some game or if you want to install some VM machine, okay, then you are supposed to have some OS ISO file. So if you don't have ISO file, then you are supposed to have some other kind of binary files, and means of binaries that is supposed to offer you the kind of installation that is required for a particular purpose. Okay. So here, the common Linux commands means all of the common Linux commands, like you want to see the process, your files, you want to ping something, you want to grep means, you want to search for a particular character or file name. Okay, you want to copy something, you want to move, you want to delete. Everything is a form of binaries. Okay,
Professor,
so that's yes.
Binaries are binary files.
Sorry.
Binaries will come under binary files.
Binary comes under binary files. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now it is the second form, that is system binaries. Okay. So here means you are supposed to have the binary executable similar to bin. Like here you can see, but these are supposed to get used only by your system administrators. So you can say the system binaries. Okay. Like I told you, there are multiple types of executable files. Okay. Some are of general nature, some are of administrative purposes, some are of different means fun purposes or something like that. So if you have multiple types of binary files, okay, then depending on their purpose, they are classified. So SBin contains only the binaries which are required by the system administrators. Now, what kind of works are performed by system administrators? Obviously, to manage the kind of network interaction, means the socket handling and all kind of things, means IP table handling. So IP tables is a command. So using IP table command, you can handle the IP table configuration. Then you are supposed to have the reboot, means if you want to, then fdisk to have the disk segmentation kind of handling. Then if config means the IP config, its equivalent in Windows is IP config. Then supon to have the kind of supon functionality. So in this way means multiple files or multiple purposes are there inside your system, and to fulfill all those purposes, you are supposed to have the specific role-binded binaries for that particular task only. Now, your system administrator is used to delve into only system-related activities. Your normal user is supposed to have only application purposes, utilities. And now depending on the user classification types also, because these administrator and user are very two high-level classification of users. Okay, but if you delve into detail, then obviously users are of 100 of types. Then similarly, system administrators might be of 2-3 types. Okay, so in this way, again, you can classify all these system binaries. So in addition to these 2-3 directories, the other important directory is the etc. That is etc. So all the configuration related files, if you want to configure, means some sort of file, you are going to use a particular binary, but you want to configure the execution in a particular way. So that's why you are supposed to use some sort of setting. Pre-setting means kind of some options that you have already set in some sort of file. Okay. So that option is supposed to give you the kind of functionality that is required for its efficient use to fulfill a particular purpose. So that's why the etc. folder, it contains the configuration files, including the startup or the shutdown shell scripts. Like in Windows, you have the startup options. So in a startup, the default programs that you want to turn on when you boot your system. So all those programs are listed down there. Similar way, you can write your own startup or shutdown shell scripts or kind of using any language like Perl or Python. You can write your scripts. And if you want to have the shell scripts, then it's also fine. Okay, you can use shell programming language, and then using shell commands, you can write your script. So just nothing means a kind of configuration. Whenever you want to modify the behavior of a particular command or the particular program, then you are supposed to write some sort of configuration or scripts. So the next directory is the dev. So dev contains the device files. So related to all the terminal devices, means kind of drivers and all the things, those are supposed to get stored inside this particular directory. Okay. Moving forward, we are going to discuss the proc, and it is supposed to have the listing of different processes. So as I told you that process is what? It's a anybody? What is the process? Program in execution. Okay. So process is a program in execution, means whatever is running inside your system, that is a particular process. Now, if it is very small, then might be part of process, means thread or something. So here process information is contained, means all type of process information is contained inside your proc directory. So it is supposed to offer you the live view, means the different running processes or the system resources present inside your system, those are currently being used. Okay. So like as you can see here inside proc, you are supposed to have the different process IDs. So proc IDs, and then inside it, you may also see the uptime of your system, means how your system resources are getting utilized and all those things. Then there are some variable files. Variable files are supposed to hold data. Those are means kind of nature which are supposed to extend, means generate, means have variable length, means they are supposed to get extend or reduce in future depending on a particular kind of operation that is performed on those files. So if there are some variable files, so depending on their characteristics, means how frequently you are using those files, how frequently you are writing or reading from those files, or truncating or adding something. So based on all these operations, their actual size is getting changed very frequently. Okay, so like system log files, very common example. Means whenever you turn on your system, you perform some routine check or kind of activity, you perform 2-3 events, everything is logged, means logged inside your log files. So your log files are supposed to get extended very frequently. Then package or database files related to package and database details. Then emails, print queues, means kind of a spooling activity, means how many activities you give for print command at a shot. But now obviously they will get executed one by one only. So remaining 3 are supposed to get handled by spool activity. Okay. Then locking, you might be having for different files, and other files might be waiting for all those things. So you are releasing the locks very frequently, you are acquiring locks very frequently. So the data of related to lock files is changing very frequently. So that's why their size is getting changed. So that's why the name variable. So variable files is supposed to have the kind of data that is supposed to change very frequently over the period of time. Okay. Now the temp files is obviously very common example, because the temporary data is temporary in nature, means it is after some period of time it is not going to get available at a particular location that 2 minutes before it was there. So similarly, when you have the kind of reboots, so that data is supposed to get wiped out. So variable data also, whenever you perform some sort of means kind of reboot operation, so if you all kind of variable data might not be present. I'm not saying that it will not be here, but might not be, because again it will depend on your system settings. Because if you are the system administrator, how you effectively set your system settings, that is up to you. If you set your system settings like this, that after reboot my log files should get deleted, all my log files should get cleared up. Okay, so in this way all the system log files will get deleted. But if you have the kind of periodic cleaning, means after 30 days or something like that, so time based also you can set up. So all these things depend always on the kind of system setting, but by default means they're based on the system means based on the file characteristics. These are the different kind of directory structure that is supposed to hold the related files, so that you could efficiently manage all sort of files inside your system. Okay. Now the very other popular category of file types is the temporary files, and that is supposed to hold by the temp. So TMP directory is supposed to hold all kind of temporary files present inside your system, and that is means files are supposed to get deleted because they are temporary in nature. Okay, normally it's a kind of default means rule, means in every system temporary data gets deleted after reboot. Then there are multiple user programs, and those are supposed to offer you different kind of functionalities on a system. So we have already discussed this thing, means you have different binaries, libraries, or the documentation or source code, and depending on the user's requirement, the user is supposed to access different sorts of file, perform different operation, and supposed to get the access of particular files. So inside user we have multiple subdirectories. You can see here it is the user bin, means the binaries with respect to a particular user. So you can see here the binary files for the user programs. Now the user might be different, so that's why depending on particular user, particular binary files are here. So if you see that if you can't find the user binary under bin folder, okay, there is a bin folder and there is a user bin folder. So then you are supposed to look under the user bin folder, because that particular binary might be available only for some specific user. So that's why here, if you don't have the root binary, you don't have a particular binary file inside a root binary directory, then you are supposed to check under the root user binary directory. Okay, then it is the user sbin, the same sort of concept. If you don't find a system binary file under root sbin, then you are supposed to find that under root user sbin. Okay, then it is the root user lib file. So these are the libraries for the user bin and the user sbin, where all sort of binaries are supposed to get stored. Then the means it's a kind of just arrangement only. Again, you can see that sir, we have already the user bin and the user sbin, and why we are having the user lib? Because again, both of these files are kind of libraries only. So that's why those are supposed to get stored here also. Because if you want to perform a common operation onto all sort of means of particular type of files, then obviously you are not supposed to have all kind of directory listing first. Okay, this type of files do exist in this folder also, in this folder also, in this folder also. So first you have to means analyze, my target files are present in how many folders. So if you have some common directories, then using that particular directory only you can perform your operation. So that's why at what level you manage your files, at what level you define your directory structure, it is up to you. Means if you are a system administrator, if you are the system file you are working at the files system implementation level. So if you are the system programmer, then obviously it is in your hand that how effectively define your file system management inside your OS. And depending on a particular existing OS implementation, you are bounded. You cannot change it unless you are a root user. And in root user also you have very limited, means it is not that you are supposed to be the kind of system designer. There also having the root privileges is also, your power is not equal to the kind of system designer. You are supposed to have the kind of functionalities those are already present only. Then you have the user local. Here you contain the user programs that you install from source. So suppose you have here it is the example, they have used a kind of Apache server. Okay, so kind of a default standard for open source client server applications. So if you have the Apache, then you are supposed to go to the Apache website, then you are supposed to download Apache, and then you are supposed to install it. Then inside a user local folder you can find this sort of folder, means this sort of directory, that inside a user local environment you can find the Apache. It is 2 is the version. Okay, so here this sort of mechanism present inside Linux. Now the another popular and very popular, means I should say the most popular directory, because every time you boot your system you come by default at this location. Okay, so when you boot your system you come in your home directory, because a desktop that is present inside your home only. Okay, so home directory is the home for all users. Now if you are a particular user, as I told you that like in this example, means only 2 users are. So inside home there are 2 folders, one is John, one is Nikita. So Nikita and John, these are the 2 different users of your system. So inside home there are 2 different folders. Like, okay, now inside boot all the boot related files will be present, and the boot loader and the master boot record. As if you remember in the last lecture we discussed the concept of master boot record, the first part of your bootable disk. Okay, so all those things are present with respect to boot directory, and your initial activities, those are supposed to get performed with respect to booting activity. Those are might be with respect to kernel initRD, then VM Linux or the grub files. Okay, these files are related to your boot activities. Then these are some of the examples with respect to specific VM files or the initial boot loading activity. So all the generic means here, as you can see, these generic. So these kind of files are supposed to get related with some sort of general activities, means a kind of template. If you see in C++, you must have heard of template. Okay, so kind of things which are very general in nature, where a particular predefined template is supposed to get used, because booting is a kind of very common activity. Every time you want to make use of your system, you are supposed to boot the system. Okay, so in this way, you can understand that there are a lot more directories, there are a lot more options, there are a lot more files. Those are supposed to get have a better understanding with respect to different tasks and users. And in addition to the previous ones, another one is the lib, that is supposed to hold the content of system libraries. Okay, and different binaries located under the bin and sbin are supposed to get incorporated in this particular lib. We have already discussed at this point. Okay, so here you can see that LD or lib, it is a kind of prefix that is supposed to get means put in front of every library files, so you can easily identify this file. Then there is another option of directories, that is opt. So opt contains the optional. So as the name itself convey the message that optional means these are the kind of add-on activities. So anybody could please put some light on means what is an add-on? What do you understand by add-on? Anyone?
Sir, I think add-ons are essentially when you install an OS, you get X amount of files that are installed by default, and then you can choose additional add-ons.
Yes. Perfectly fine. Okay. And in addition to this means if most of the guys do not means focus much while having the kind of OS installation, because in OS installation we usually have means every software installation we usually go with the recommended setting. Okay, so yeah, next, and the software installation is over. So the most common example is that if you have used the concept of add-on in any browser. Okay, in Chrome also a lot more add-ons are available that may improve your throughput, means your working efficiency can get improved through add-ons. So you can have the kind of direct light management in your system, or the kind of spell checker, or the kind of other sort of activities, means grammar checker. So different kind of add-ons are present with respect to a particular browser. You can have the kind of language translator. Okay, so all these add-ons can get installed in your browser. So in browser, if you go to the Chrome web store, then through Chrome web store, you can install a particular add-on onto your Chrome in your Chrome browser, and then you can improve your functional output. So in this way, the default Chrome is not supposed to come with some existing add-ons, because some of the users means do have the feature of add-on. Then why we don't have all kind of add-ons already present with our default system installation? Hello.
Professor, can you repeat? Your voice cracked for me. I heard only why is something not included.
Yes, I was asking that if we have so many add-ons, and add-ons are supposed to improve your system's functionality, then why don't the default system installation come with all kind of add-ons installed?
Professor, because all these add-ons take additional space to install, and the user might not need all of those add-ons.
Yes.
You can install different extra things, but like the user might not need it, and they might have a small memory space available.
Yes. So first thing that there might be a resource scarcity. Okay. So first case, user might not be having a very profound system in terms of a hardware or kind of other resources. But point is, in addition to this, security is a very critical concern, because you never know, means user never get 100% sure that this add-on is totally secure or not. Okay. For example, you are using some proxy server. Okay. Now you are using a particular proxy server or VPN tool, then that particular tool means what level of security is present with that particular tool. Though the users are rating that particular tool, but most of the users are coming from non-technical background. if their purpose is getting satisfied, obviously they are not going to bother what kind of security you are getting from particular software. So that's why, based on just the user's recommendation or the kind of stars that these many users have given this much, these many stars a particular application, you cannot judge. But yes, it's a common criteria to filter your secure application or the kind of good application. We usually see that on Google Play Store or any Play Store, App Store, these many users have given this much rating. So based on the rating system, we usually edit or admire a particular software. So it depends. Means always it varies. These concerns vary from user to user, because for a different user the concerns are different. Somebody might like to remain anonymous, totally anonymous. Okay, so might be very interested in VPN and sort of activities. So he might be using very high paid VPN softwares. But somebody is just trying to open a site that is not accessible in India. So obviously he's not going to bother about the kind of identity. Okay, if he is able to, though the third party application is able to trace my location, it's fine. But my purpose is supposed to get fulfilled for this particular time. So one time activity, no foundation. Okay, no concerns and all these things. But if you are bothered about the long term, you are supposed to means if you are thinking for long term activity and you are supposed to dig deep down into kind of some very serious matter, or some means most of the like black hat programmers, so they do perform most of the illegal activities. Okay, so those kind of users are supposed to be very critical in their choices. Means a very critic kind of nature they do have in their choices, because they do know that only single mistake can help to trace their location, and obviously they can go to jail. So in this way, all the optional add-ons, they are obviously means critical from resource, the amount of resources that is available on your site or on your system point of view. But yes, from the security point of view, that is a very heavy choice. Means heavy means means it needs a lot more analysis. It's not that simple. So moving forward, we are going to discuss the concept of mount. So it is supposed to have the admin mount file system. So all kind of mounting related files, because those are kind of files only, because these are supposed to get stored inside a MNT, means mounted directory. Then there are some media kind of removable or the kind of permanent, but those are might be CD-ROM floppy or the kind of CD-write. So these are supposed to be the temporary mounted directory. So temporary mounted directory means a temporary media, but if you are supposed to discuss that permanent media, then you can see that there are the fixed kind of inside computer, there are fixed drives. Okay, so in this way, there are different types of files. There are a lot more, means we cannot discuss each and every one, but in short we will discuss. Okay, because in this way it is going to take a lot more time. And lastly, it is the service data. Service data means with respect to different applications that do need different types of services. And when a particular consumer or the user is having a particular service, then the service user also wants means he wants that the service level agreements, those were supposed to get fulfilled from the provider side, those are definitely supposed to get fulfilled up to the specified benchmark. So in this way, services are important, and how effectively those services are getting utilized or their performance, those are supposed to get measured, because how you evaluate that how a specific service is performing, and should we continue with it or should we discontinue, how we means why we are lacking users, why our users are leaving us. So in all these sort of activities, service data, it is the most important thing. And based on that particular service data, if you perform right kind of mining or the analysis, you are supposed to get some useful insights. Okay. So in short, obviously we cannot discuss all in detail. So we are going to discuss in short some of the very common directories and subdirectories. Okay. So I think we have discussed the concept of root. We have discussed the bin also. It contains the executables. Okay. Then we have the boot. It is supposed to hold the Linux kernel and the other files. Those are supposed to needed by the booting system for efficient boot, like a grub. Okay. Then we have the dev, that is supposed to contain the different devices, then etc. supposed to have the different configurations. Okay. And then we have the home, that is a parent for all the users. Then we have the lib, means it is supposed to have the all kind of library files. Then we have the lost and plus found. Okay, you must have heard of this or have seen. So it's the directory for all lost files. So in every partition, you'll find a vuln file. If you don't find this sort of a directory inside your system, then you are supposed to go to view, and then you are supposed to list the hidden files. Then most probably you'll see it. Okay. Then we have the media kind of mounting file system for removable media. Then we have the mount for temporary mounted file system. So means kind of backup software. So if you have the third party additional storage devices, then in that particular kind of system, you are supposed to have this sort of directory uses. Then we have the opt for optional packages for having the kind of additional add-ons. Then we have the proc for the different kind of process. Those are supposed to get performed inside your system or supposed to offer their functionalities. So these are also helpful to maintain a kind of virtual view of your memory file system. Okay. Then we have the kind of root that is supposed to be the home directory for all kind of device, all kind of directories for the root user. And then we have the run. And as I told you earlier, that run is not present in all the versions. So in some of the versions, it might be present, in some it might not. So it gives a standard place to restore the transient. So means a transient means the kind of files which are supposed to change their state. Their state is getting changed. Like you have the executables, so they change their state very frequently. So if file is supposed to change their state, those are supposed to be in transient state. Then we have the SBIN, means the kind of system binary files. So system binary are supposed to get used by the kind of administrator, so for administrative purposes, and that's why SBIN is a very important. Okay. Then we have the SE Linux. SE Linux is the kind of a secure Linux. Okay, so if you want to have the kind of a Linux distro that is very much concerned from the security point of view, so then you are supposed to use the SE Linux. Now we have why it is stopped. In addition to this, we have the other, that is serve. So it is supposed to have the different sorts of service data that is required by different applications. Okay. So here you can see that HTTP or FTP they have discussed, because these are the kind of very common services that you do perform inside your system. Okay. So whenever there is a system on network, so all the network related services are supposed to get installed, listed there. Okay. Then we have the sys. It is a special directory for that is supposed to have the kind of system related devices. Means system when you have multiple devices inside your system, those devices are supposed to interact with your system. So that's why all sort of communication that's supposed to get handled within this particular directory. Then we have the temp for the temporary directory, and obviously it might be very kind of empty only when you reboot your system, because every time you reboot your system, those are supposed to get empty. And again, sort of temporary data will start to get fill in different sorts of file. Who created at what particular time get created a particular temporary file, who has the access rights, and all those things are supposed to get defined with respect to the creation of a particular file. Then we have the user that is supposed to hold a different multiple subdirectories, and with respect to a specific user, whether the GUI support is present or not, different files are supposed to be part of the user directory. Then we have the user bin, user include, user lib, user local, user sbin, user share, user source. Okay. And as you can see, then all these subdirectories are supposed to fulfill the same kind of purpose that was earlier present with respect to root user. Now all these features are present with respect to the specific users. So here binary is supposed to have the executables with respect to the users. Then include means what sort of file are supposed to get included. So if you are using some sort of programming language, then definitely you must have heard about the header files. Okay, so all those the header files are kind of part of include files. Then there is a kind of library files, similar concept. Then there are this kind of local files for every user. Then there is the administrative activity with respect to a specific user. And then sharing means related to the configuration of who can access, at what particular time you can access, what are the different access rights. And then lastly, there is a different kind of means source code files. Means those are supposed to offer you the actual source implementation of different files. So in this way, these are different directories and subdirectories. In addition to this, these are the some additional where that is supposed to have the variable length files, and then where cache that is supposed to have the cached data for application. Then where lib that is supposed to have the current state of your application with respect to the library file implementation. Then lock file that is supposed to offer you the different locks, and lock is supposed to offer you the protection, obviously. Then we have the log files. Log files are supposed to get varied. So as you can see that whatever is the subdirectory inside lock, those are supposed to get vary with respect to time, because var contains all sort of variable length files. So cache is supposed to get extend or reduce, means the amount of cache content, not the size of cache. Okay. So if you have a 4 MB cache and at a moment that only 250 KB is supposed to get used, then obviously that is very less usage. After a moment means it is supposed to get 1 MB of cache. So that is good enough. So in this way means at least 1/4 of the cache is getting utilized, and means at least you are making use of your system resources. So in this way your data that is part of your variable files, if that is increasing or decreasing, so all these files are supposed to get changed with respect to specific application and purpose. So cache, library files, log files, mail, optional means add-ons, then the run related or the input output related means the spooling related files. Those are supposed to vary their content, okay, in different environment. And finally template. So with respect to different operations, some temporary data will get generated, and obviously it is going to get varied. Okay. Now the third module, that is the file sharing. So as we are discussing the concept of sharing, so sharing is means you are supposed to present your content to other users. So those are kind of having the specific collaboration in your work, or you are being a part of team or not being a part of team. You are supposed to share content. If you are not a kind of a team, then you are sharing will be kind of client server, means you are the provider, means you are the server, other are the client. If you are part of some collaborative team, then obviously it's a kind of peer-to-peer sharing. So peer-to-peer means it's a kind of means you might be collaborating whether on a project or just for some sharing activity. You must have heard of some of the sharing content sharing platforms, where all these platforms are part of kind of a peer-to-peer network, where nobody is more, nobody is less. Okay, nobody is boss, nobody is slave. So everybody is equal. So in that particular environment, you are supposed to have the very good amount of file sharing. Could anyone of you please give me an example of peer-to-peer network? Just now I told you that what is the definition of peer-to-peer network. Please give me an example.
Professor, maybe the system that you would have inside a college where all the professors' laptops are linked from peer to peer to each other, and they can upload their marks and stuff onto it.
Yes, but that is also client server, because the server where they are uploading their marks, that is the main server that is allowing you to have the read or write access. Okay, that's why you are supposed to log in to that particular system, and then you are supposed to read from there or write from there. Yes, all the professors which are putting their marks there, all those professors are of peer nature. Okay, but I'm asking a peer network. I'm not asking about the peer users. Okay, like a peer review. Peer review is not about the system; it's about the users. If I am sending you some file for review, or you are sending some file to me for a specific review, okay, then we are using the platform of Canvas. Now in Canvas, if Canvas is allowing us to read or write something from its platform, then Canvas is a kind of server, and we, you or me, we are using the kind of service of Canvas. So in this way, Canvas is a kind of server. We are the two clients. So when we say that some platform we are using for some common purpose, then it's not a kind of peer-to-peer, true peer-to-peer network. Though the users are peer, users are not big or less. You and me both are equal. From Canvas, obviously you are working in a student capacity. I'm working in a kind of professor activity. We are not peer here, but obviously in general environment, so many peer users are available. But I'm talking about the peer-to-peer network where everyone is equal. The sender means the server is equal to client only. Client is equal to server only. It's a kind of environment where every client can become a server, and every server can become a client anytime.
So, Professor, on mobile there is an app called ShareIt, from where you can send files from one mobile to another.
Yes. Perfect example.
Peer-to-peer connection, and then both can send files to each other, and both mobiles are considered equal to each other.
Yes, that's a good example. Okay. In addition to this, I don't remember the exact name, but we used to have a kind of software for large amount of file sharing. Means in GBZ, if you discuss perhaps in your college, means in your university also, students might be using. There is a I forgot the name. Means there might be multiple other softwares for large amount of file sharing. So they use the campus network for their file sharing, and you have created some notes, you have a set of a whole lot of movies, kind of index you have maintained of movies, somebody has maintained an index of games. Okay, so other user is not supposed to download all those games or the movies at their end. So that's why the other users will have the kind of access to your system, and your system will become a kind of server for them. After in the same moment, means when they are fetching content from your system, then you are fetching content from their system. Okay, so this kind of peer-to-peer network you can form over any network, and in colleges, means in universities, we do have the dedicated LAN networks. So this kind of peer-to-peer networks are quite popular. Additionally, if you go into the kind of proxy spaces, okay, so based on the definition of proxy, means in some space, I forgot the name. There are multiple pirating sites. So if you go to kind of pirating word, if you imagine, so there are a lot of more pirates, means everyone is kind of pirate only because they are not putting the kind of authentic content there. So if you discuss the concept of pirating, selling or exchange environment, then obviously that kind of network is also a kind of peer-to-peer network, because everyone is a seller, everyone is the owner. Okay, and everyone is a buyer, everyone is a client. Okay, so in this way, where the seller or the buyer or the owner, everyone is equal, because every time, means when somebody is changing their role, okay, and when every time the users are changing their role, the very next moment they become the user of the particular service, and next moment only they are supposed to become the provider or the owner. So in this way, every time you are supposed to work in such sort of network environment, you are supposed to be the part of peer-to-peer network. Now we are discussing the concept of file sharing, because in peer-to-peer network, a lot more file sharing happens. And in FTP, means you must have heard of the concept of FTP, that is file transfer protocol, and it is used for transferring means large size files, means not for small size files. So normally when users do work and they exchange their data in peer-to-peer networks, they use the concept of FTPs. Okay, so here kind of client server environment, means FTP might be the part of client server environment, but FTP might be used in peer-to-peer networks also. Now in SFTP is more required in kind of potentially insecure environment, means where a lot more threats are possible, means people are supposed to have the kind of notion that here our content might be in danger. So our identity or our location might be under some radar or something like that. Okay, so you are supposed to have the secure shell, because your content might not be visible to others. So secure shell, SSH, that is well-known transfer security standard, and obviously that is used for the file transfer protocol. So when you add your SSH, means this secure shell file transfer protocol, in short, is also known as the secure FTP. Okay, so secure FTP is supposed to get used in a potentially insecure environment, and different users are supposed to transfer their content only in secure manner. So your content is supposed to get encrypted, and then only that is supposed to travel over the FTP. Now we have two more sharing options. In Linux, we do have the notion of SCP, that is the kind of a secure copying. Okay, so when we have the secure copying concept, then there are obviously two machines, and they want to have the kind of copying data from each other's tables. So they are supposed to have the SSH implementation at their side, because every time you are supposed to discuss the concept of security, then SSH is a kind of a standard. So then SSH is supposed to put the kind of security in your all kind of transactions, whatever you are making with respect to files. Okay, then your copying is supposed to get secured. Then we have the rsync. So with respect to rsync, it means it's a file transfer and synchronization program in Unix-like systems, and obviously in Linux also. And it is specifically used to minimize the kind of data transfer, because in FTP we see that long size files are supposed to get transferred over your network, but that long size transfer takes a lot more time and your efficiency. Means after all, your with respect to your data size, your transfer time is supposed to get increased. Okay, so that's why using effective sort of encoding mechanisms or the kind of compression mechanism, you can minimize the size of your supposed to be transmitted data. Okay, so if your the supposed to be transmitted data is minimized, then obviously your transfer time is supposed to get minimized. This transfer time will minimize overall your the task completion, means the turnaround time, if you remember the process discussion. Okay, so this transfer process, its overall turnaround time will get minimized if you have the right kind of compression or the compaction mechanism. So here the kind of delta encoding is used, and using the zlib compression method, rsync mechanism helps you to minimize the kind of network data transfer. Then obviously again, if you want to have the kind of encryption, because most of the users are not bothered about the kind of security, because if there is some movie transfer, if you are transferring some movie to another user, or user is supposed to have the kind of access, then both parties are not bothered about that. If somebody sees the content, then what will happen? No, it's open, means everybody knows that who are the kind of cast in this particular movie, what is the kind of content. So in this way, if the content is not of secure nature, means it is a kind of critical nature, then you are not bothered about the security component, because incorporating security looks simple, but it's very costly. Costly means firstly you need to encrypt, then you need to decrypt, though you are not realizing, but your machine is realizing. Though your machine is doing it very quickly, but the power consumption is being more. So that's why your system power factor is going down. So in this way, your security, means the SSH or the external kind of concepts, so those are supposed to work behind the picture, but ultimately the system is supposed to generate more heat, and that's why when you do realize that when you perform sort of a very high magnitude of arithmetic operations or the kind of encryption or decryption, your system makes noise. Okay, because it's means your fan is running at more speed. Your fan is running at more speed, it means what? Means your system is supposed to fetch data from some other location at very high speed, and that speed is not good enough. That's why it's taking more time. Okay, though your system is powerful, but it is taking time, means the operation is pressurizing your system to generate more heat. And if there is more heat inside your system, then your fan is obviously is supposed to work at more power. Okay, so in this way, your system's power factor is a kind of trade-off component. If you want to minimize the kind of data, then you are supposed to compact it, and means you are supposed to compress it, and then you are supposed to transfer it. It will also improve your power factor. This way, we discussed today's content. If you have any sort of doubt or question, you can ask me. Platform is open. Please.
Professor, do messaging apps count as peer-to-peer network?
Messaging apps, yes, but it depends. Means, are you able to directly send it to other user, or you are supposed to first transfer your content to the server, and then the other user is copying data from there? Means there are two types of messaging services. Okay, it is not like that every user is supposed to, every time we are sending something, it is not like that our data is going directly from one user device to another user device. No. It might be the case that your data is first getting copied to the server of the application, and then the other user is just taking a copy of your data from their side. Okay, so in this way, your data is maintained at the server of the application, and that's why many people do complain about this kind of concept also, that ultimately where is our privacy? Because our content is fetched, and ultimately you can have the kind of every knowledge about us. So with respect to Alexa and all other devices also, means people do realize that everything we are talking about, then Amazon or Microsoft or any other device that is manufacturing smart devices that companies are listening are means a daily routine. So they are listening to our private conversations also. So that might be dangerous. So that's why concerns are there, but at what level you are concerned about your concerns, means what kind of security you want in your life, that is also different from user to user. Now, WhatsApp claims that all the content is encrypted end to end, means a transport layer security is there. But transport layer security, ultimately your data is supposed to get reside at the WhatsApp server only for some period of time. After some period of time, means they might be removing. I think if you read the terms, means the privacy policy, every time you install some software, they do ask you to check checkbox that I have read all the security and privacy settings and policies. Okay, so that sort of disclaimer before giving that checkbox, you are supposed to read all the policies. So inside that option, you will find all sort of policies which are provided by that particular company, that whether we are maintaining a copy of your conversation or not, if we are maintaining, then for how long period we are maintaining your conversation at our server. Are we maintaining in plain data form, or are we maintaining in encrypted data form? So all these things are clear in that particular policy document. Okay, and then if later stage you come to a point, means you come across the fact that no, this is a violation of the policies that was supposed to give from, means the service level agreement was not like this, means they were not supposed to manage our conversation more than 30 days at their server, but they are maintaining. So you can go to court, you can sue the company. Okay, so in this way, means lawsuits can get filed. So people do go, obviously, because in this way they do get the recognition also, as well as lot more money is comes in the form of compensation from company side if the user, all the accusations are true. So that is the part. So point is, if your data is going to server and then from there you are reading, it's not peer-to-peer, true peer-to-peer. Okay, only users are peer, not server, because server is more powerful than you, because you can't maintain data at your device level for 30 days. Okay, but the server is maintaining, and then there only you are having a kind of copy. But if all the users are kind of equal to each other, then obviously it's a kind of true peer-to-peer network. Okay, you guys must be using some sort of pirating sites, no? Definitely. Nobody accepts it, but definitely everyone might be using. So all those sort of proxy sites, pirating sites, those are kind of example of peer-to-peer networks. Any other? Okay, guys. So I'm closing this session. Thanks for your time. We'll meet in next class.